The scorching sun blazed mercilessly over the rugged hills of the Spanish countryside. A sleek black Mercedes wound its way up the narrow road, dust curling behind its tires. Inside, Amanda Galinda sat in tense silence, gripping the leather seat. Her eyes, hidden behind dark sunglasses, were fixed on the majestic estate looming in the distance, the De la Vega family estate, a monument to both legacy and betrayal. She hadn't been here since Don Ernesto's funeral. The memory pierced her like a shard of glass. His casket, the cold faces of relatives, the whispers, especially the whispers. As the car stopped in front of the grand wrought iron gates, they opened slowly, groaning under their own weight. The driver nodded to her. "We've arrived, Senora." Amanda stepped out, her heels clicking sharply on the cobblestones. She inhaled deeply. The scent of lavender and dry earth was still the same. The estate was breathtaking. Tall stone columns, grand balconies, ancient olive trees shading the courtyard. Yet beneath its beauty, a darkness pulsed like a hidden wound. She walked through the massive doors into the cool, echoing interior. The marble floors stretched endlessly beneath intricate frescoed ceilings. Servants passed silently, heads bowed. It was a palace, and yet it felt like a mausoleum. In the drawing room, two figures awaited her. Elena de la Vega, striking, elegant, with a stare sharp enough to slice through lies, and her brother Alberto, lean, composed, with a lawyer's smile and a killer's patience. "Amanda," Elena said, standing but not embracing her. "We weren't expecting you so soon." "I couldn't wait," Amanda replied, her voice steady but laced with steel. "I believe you know why I'm here." Alberto gave a tight smile. "Of course. The will." There it was. The word that had split the family into factions, that had turned siblings into enemies. The last will of Don Ernesto de la Vega, billionaire, philanthropist, and the man who had raised Amanda as his own after her parents' tragic death. The will had been read in secrecy, and according to its contents, Amanda, not Elena or Alberto, was the primary heir. It was a scandal, a war waiting to erupt. Elena's eyes narrowed. "We were told the documents were clear, but if you wish to contest them—" "I'm not here to contest anything," Amanda cut in. "I'm here because I know he didn't change his will without reason, and I want the truth." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then a third voice spoke from the shadows. "I know the truth." They all turned. From the side entrance emerged a man Amanda hadn't seen in years, tall with tousled dark hair and eyes filled with storms. Sebastián de la Vega, cousin, outcast, exiled from the family under mysterious circumstances. Amanda's heart stilled. He looked older, wearier, but still carried the fire she remembered. "You shouldn't be here," Elena hissed. "I have every right to be," Sebastián replied calmly. He turned to Amanda. "If you want to know why Don Ernesto left everything to you, I can tell you." Amanda felt the air grow colder. Elena stepped forward. "Don't listen to him. He's bitter, jealous. He's been waiting years for revenge." But Amanda's eyes were locked on Sebastián's. She saw something in them, pain, regret, and something else, truth. "What do you know?" she asked, voice low. He walked toward her, slow, deliberate. "I know that 5 years ago, Elena and Alberto tried to trick Don Ernesto into signing over control of all his assets," he said, under the guise of financial optimization. He refused. He suspected something was off, and he was right. Elena's face paled, but she said nothing. Sebastián continued. "They forged documents, faked emails. I know because they asked me to help." Amanda gasped. "I refused," Sebastián said, his voice breaking slightly. "And when I warned Don Ernesto, he disowned me. Not because he didn't believe me, but because he wanted to protect me. He knew Elena and Alberto wouldn't stop. He told me, 'The truth always comes out.'" Amanda stood frozen. It was too much, too sudden, yet somehow it made perfect sense. Sebastián reached into his coat and pulled out an old envelope, thick, worn, marked with Don Ernesto's seal. "And now it's time," he said, placing it on the table, Time for the truth to destroy the lies. Amanda stared at the envelope, her hand trembling. The storm had begun. Amanda sat motionless for several seconds, staring at the envelope lying on the table like a live grenade. Her breathing slowed. The room was quiet, but tension coiled like a snake, ready to strike. Elena stepped forward, her voice cutting through the silence like glass. "This is absurd," she said, eyes flashing. "We've entertained this farce long enough. Sebastian was disinherited for a reason. He's trying to manipulate you." Amanda didn't look up. "Don Ernesto trusted me," Sebastian said evenly. "He sent me this envelope shortly before his death. He asked me to keep it safe in case something happened to him." "And you expect us to believe that?" Alberto snapped, his mask of calm cracking for the first time. "You, who disappeared for years, only to reappear now when everything's at stake." "I disappeared," Sebastian said, his voice suddenly hard, "because your lies almost destroyed me. Because my uncle, the only man who ever believed in me, thought he could protect me by casting me out." He looked at Amanda. "He didn't want me involved in what was coming, but he knew one day you'd need help, that they'd come after you too." Amanda's fingers finally reached for the envelope. Her skin brushed its surface, the rough texture of old paper, the edges frayed with time. Slowly she opened it. Inside were dozens of papers, copies of contracts, bank statements, wire transfers, email printouts, evidence. Amanda pulled out the top sheet, a scanned contract, marked with a De La Vega crest, granting total control of Ernesto's assets to an offshore company. A forged signature at the bottom, his signature. A chill ran down her spine. "This is real," she whispered. "No," Elena said, voice sharp. "It's fabricated." A performance. Sebastian turned to her, eyes burning. "Then why do you look afraid?" Elena flinched, the faintest movement, but Amanda caught it. "There's more," Sebastian said. He reached into his coat again and pulled out a USB drive. Encrypted communication logs, transactions routed through shell companies, documents they used in other fraudulent deals. He placed it on the table beside the envelope. Amanda's world began to tilt. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, painting a picture far darker than she'd ever imagined. "My uncle knew they'd try again," Sebastian continued. "That's why he rewrote his will. That's why he left it all to you." Amanda looked at him, tears rising. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why not you?" He hesitated, his voice softened. "Because he knew they'd never stop coming after me. I'd already been tainted in their eyes, but you still had your name, your honor, your innocence." He looked down. "And because I refused to destroy what little family I had left, even when they betrayed me." Silence fell again, but this time Amanda was no longer afraid of it. "I believe you," she said. Elena gasped. "Amanda, don't be foolish." "You betrayed him," Amanda said, turning to her, her voice firm now. "You tried to steal everything, and when that didn't work, you turned on Sebastian, and now me." Alberto stepped forward, his fist clenched. "You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand perfectly," Amanda cut in. "And now I have everything I need to fight you, in court, in the media, in every way that matters." She turned to Sebastian. "Thank you." He looked surprised, then quietly nodded. "But there's more," he said. "Something you don't know." Amanda frowned. "What?" He hesitated, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The fire at your house. It wasn't an accident." Her breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying they tried to kill you, Amanda." Elena's face went white. "You're insane," she shouted, but it was too late. Amanda stepped back, her face pale, her eyes blazing. "You tried to burn me alive." "No," Elena cried. "We would never." But Amanda was already walking away, Sebastian at her side. Behind them, Elena and Alberto stood frozen, their empire cracking at the foundation, and in that moment, Amanda knew the battle had begun, not just for wealth, for truth, for justice, for the memory of the only man who ever truly protected her, Don Ernesto de la Vega. Night blanketed the city, but Amanda couldn't sleep. The documents lay spread across the table like fragments of a broken mirror, each reflecting a new layer of betrayal. She had read every word, every forged signature, every transfer from secret accounts. The scope of Elena and Alberto's deception was staggering, ruthless, cold. In the dim light, Sebastian sat across from her, silent. His eyes were fixed on the floor, lost in the weight of memory. Amanda finally spoke. Her voice was tired, but steady. "How did you survive it?" Sebastian looked up, startled. "The exile," she clarified. "The betrayal." He exhaled. "You don't survive it," he said after a moment. "Not really. You just learn to carry it." Amanda leaned back, letting the silence fill the room again. It wasn't just the fire, or the forged documents, or the lies. It was everything. Don Ernesto had trusted her, really trusted her, and now she was holding the last weapons he left behind. "You said there's more," she said finally. "What aren't you telling me?" Sebastian hesitated, then stood up. "I need to show you something," he said, "but not here." She followed him to the narrow hallway outside. They walked in silence, past old portraits and creaking wooden floors, until they reached a locked door. Sebastian pulled a key from around his neck, opened it, and flicked on the light. Inside was a small room, simple, sparse. A single table stood in the middle, and on it, a locked briefcase. Sebastian entered the code. The lid snapped open. Inside were folders, old, yellowing, and a leather-bound notebook. "My uncle's journal," he said quietly. "His personal notes. He never let anyone read them, not even me." Amanda stepped forward, carefully lifting the first page. The handwriting was unmistakably Don Ernesto's, bold, clean. "I no longer know whom I can trust. Elena watches me like a predator. Alberto whispers to my advisors. I pretend not to notice. But I see everything. I record everything. Because one day this journal might be all that's left." Amanda turned another page. "Sebastian warned me. His loyalty remains intact. I have made him my scapegoat. For his own protection. It's the only way I can distance him from what's coming." She looked at Sebastian. He said nothing. More pages, more revelations. "They've begun moving funds through offshore companies. I've traced the patterns. Shell accounts in Panama. Real estate in Montenegro. If something happens to me, if I'm gone, find the trail. Follow the money." A chill passed through Amanda's body. The notebook wasn't just a journal. It was a map to everything. "Amanda is the only one I can trust now. I have made the necessary changes to my will. If they come after her, and they will, she must be ready." She looked up, eyes wide. "He knew," she whispered. "All of it." "Yes," Sebastian said, "but he couldn't stop them, not completely." Amanda's hands trembled. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. This was war, and Don Ernesto had armed her with everything she'd need to win. Suddenly, her phone vibrated on the table behind them. Unknown number. She answered, cautious. "Amanda Galinda," a voice said. Male. Rough. "Yes. Who is this?" "You don't know me," the voice said. "But I used to work for your uncle. Security detail. I have something you need to see. It's about the fire." Amanda's blood froze. "Who are you?" "I don't trust phones," he said. "Meet me tomorrow night. Old train yard. Warehouse 11. Come alone. Don't tell Sebastian." The line went dead. Amanda stared at the phone. Sebastian stepped closer. "Who was it?" She hesitated. "No one," she lied. "Wrong number." He nodded slowly, but something in his eyes said he didn't believe her. She didn't care. If this was another piece of the puzzle, she had to find it, even if it meant walking into the dark alone. "Why are you doing this, Sebastian?" Amanda asked. Her voice was soft but filled with genuine curiosity. There was no accusation in her words, only the fragile trace of disbelief. Disbelief that someone, anyone, would risk so much for her. Sebastian looked at her. His eyes were tired but unwavering. "Because my uncle trusted you, Señorita Galinda," he said calmly, "and because, no matter what happened, he was still my uncle. And justice matters." He paused, his breath catching briefly. "I don't want his memory tainted by the greed of those two. He didn't deserve that." Amanda watched him, searching his face. There was no hidden motive there, no performance, only pain. "And," he added after a long moment, "I know the fire in your home wasn't an accident. I know it was them. And I can't just stand by while they try to destroy someone innocent." Amanda felt a wave of something she hadn't experienced in weeks. Gratitude, not relief, not safety, but the deep, aching realization that she wasn't alone in this anymore. A spark of alliance had ignited in the dark. She looked down at the envelope once again. The documents inside weren't just a collection of suspicious emails and transfer records. They were a mirror, reflecting the monstrous lengths to which Elena and Alberto would go. It wasn't just about greed, it was about erasure, control, power. And now, Amanda had something they never expected: proof. Sebastian stood quietly beside her as she sifted through the files. Fake contracts used in other manipulative deals, bank statements riddled with odd looping transfers, email threads written in vague, cautious language that nonetheless revealed intent. Words like liquidation, restructuring, and exit plan repeated over and over. This wasn't evidence of one crime, this was a pattern, a history, a modus operandi. "It's not direct proof of anything in the will," Sebastian admitted. "They were too careful for that, but it shows who they are, it shows what they're capable of." Amanda nodded slowly. "It'll be enough," she said. "For the judge, for the lawyers, to plant doubt, to show that your uncle had every reason not to trust them," Sebastian added. They both stood in silence, the gravity of it pressing in. Then Amanda turned to him. "If you help me fight them," she said, "you'll become a target too." "I already am," he said simply. The rain began outside, a soft drizzle tapping against the windows. Sebastian moved to the fireplace, stoked the last of the embers. He was calm now, resolved, but Amanda could see the shadow in his movements, the years of exile, betrayal, loneliness. He wasn't here for revenge, he was here for redemption. And Amanda was no longer a victim. She was the storm coming to collect. Night had fallen completely. The windows of Amanda's small apartment, now black mirrors, reflecting the flickering light of the fireplace. Outside, the rain fell harder, steady, insistent, as if cleansing the world of secrets long buried. Sebastian sat at the kitchen table, his sleeves rolled up, sorting through the documents he had brought. Amanda watched him for a long moment, then quietly approached, a cup of steaming tea in her hands. "Here," she said softly, placing it beside him. "You've done enough for one night." He looked up at her and smiled faintly, a tired, almost sad expression. "I haven't done anything yet," he replied. "The hard part is just beginning." Amanda sat across from him, folding her hands in her lap. Her mind was racing, but her heart had steadied. The fear that had consumed her for weeks, the paranoia, the isolation, had cracked open, not gone, but pierced. She now had direction. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," she said, "an old friend of my father's. He said, without solid proof, it would be impossible to contest the will, but what you've brought, it changes everything." Sebastian nodded. "They built their empire on manipulation and forgery. We just have to show that pattern, paint the picture. The judge doesn't need to see them committing the act, just to believe it was within their character." Amanda hesitated. "Will you testify?" He looked her dead in the eyes. "Yes." Silence settled over them again, but it was no longer cold. Then Amanda's phone buzzed on the table, a message from an unknown number. "You're making a mistake. Stop now while you still can." She felt the blood drain from her face. Sebastian noticed. What is it? Amanda turned the phone toward him. He read the message, his jaw tightening. They know, he said. They're watching you. No, Amanda whispered, trembling. They're watching both of us. Sebastian stood abruptly and pulled the curtain aside, peering through the rain-drenched glass. The street below was dark and quiet, the occasional car splashing through puddles. Nothing suspicious. But the silence was deceptive. Amanda rose too, her heart pounding. We have to move, Sebastian said quickly. They'll escalate. They always do when they're cornered. But where? Amanda asked. He turned to her, a flicker of memory flashing across his face. There's a place in the countryside. My uncle took me there once, years ago. Isolated, safe. They won't find us there. Amanda didn't hesitate. I'll pack. 20 minutes later, they were gone. The apartment behind them empty. But as the car pulled away into the storm, now a black vehicle parked half a block down switched on its lights and followed. The road twisted through the forest like a serpent, its curves barely visible through the thick curtain of rain. The headlights of Sebastian's car sliced through the darkness, illuminating tree trunks slick with water and the glistening outlines of old stone walls. Amanda sat silently beside him, arms crossed, her gaze lost in the downpour outside. Neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward, it was heavy, filled with the weight of all that had been revealed and all that still lay ahead. How much further? Amanda finally asked, her voice quiet but tense. 20 minutes, Sebastian answered, eyes focused on the road. It's an old hunting lodge my uncle used during the summers. It hasn't been touched in years, but it'll do. Amanda nodded and turned her gaze back to the window. In her mind, images of Don Ernesto flickered like ghosts. His voice, his warnings, the kindness in his tired eyes. She could feel him still watching over her, and now she had Sebastian, an unlikely ally, a man once cast out by his own family, now returning to bring justice to the one who had protected him when no one else would. As they drove deeper into the forest, the rain finally began to ease. The trees grew denser, their canopies forming a dark green ceiling over the road. Then suddenly, Sebastian slowed the car. Ahead, a figure was standing in the middle of the road. Amanda gasped. It was a man in a raincoat, soaked through, motionless, as if waiting for them. His face was obscured by the shadows. Stay in the car, Sebastian said quickly, unbuckling his seatbelt. Sebastian, no! But he was already out of the car, walking cautiously toward the figure, one hand at his side, ready. Who are you? He called out. No answer. Move, now! Still nothing. Suddenly the figure stepped aside and disappeared into the trees. Sebastian froze. Then, without a word, he rushed back to the car and slammed the door shut. What happened? Amanda asked. I don't know, but that wasn't random. He pressed the accelerator hard. The tire skidded slightly on the wet gravel before gaining traction. They drove in a silence for several more minutes until the trees finally parted, revealing a long-forgotten stone building with moss-covered walls and boarded-up windows, the hunting lodge. They parked behind it, hidden from the road. Inside it smelled of dust and old wood, but the fireplace still worked. Within minutes, Sebastian had started a fire and the room began to warm. Amanda sat on an old armchair, hands clasped. What if they already know about this place? She asked. They don't, Sebastian said firmly. I never told anyone, not even my mother. Amanda looked at him, eyes searching. You were close to Don Ernesto, weren't you? He nodded slowly. He was more of a father to me than my real one ever was. He saw through them, through their greed and their cruelty. He wanted to believe his family could be saved, but in the end he realized it was a fantasy. Amanda's voice trembled. Do you think they killed him? Sebastian didn't answer at first. Then he looked her straight in the eyes. I think they made sure he didn't live long enough to change the will. Amanda closed her eyes. Outside the rain had stopped, but the storm had only just begun. The flickering fire painted dancing shadows across the worn wooden walls of the hunting lodge. Amanda sat with a blanket draped over her shoulders, her eyes fixed on the flames, but her mind far away, in the mansion halls of her youth, in the cold eyes of Elena, in the accusing silence of Alberto. Sebastian stood near the window, watching the darkness outside as if expecting something, or someone, to emerge from it. His hand was resting on the edge of the curtain, his jaw tight, eyes alert. "They won't rest now," he said finally. "You've made your move. You refused to sign. That was your protection before. Now they'll panic." Amanda turned to him slowly. "I didn't do it to provoke them. I just couldn't betray what I know, what I feel. This isn't just about money anymore." "It never was," Sebastian replied. He walked over and sat across from her, pulling a small notebook from his coat pocket. Its leather cover was faded and cracked with age. "What's that?" she asked. "My uncle's personal journal. He didn't write often, but what he did write matters." Amanda leaned forward, her breath catching. Sebastian opened it gently, flipping through pages filled with spidery handwriting. Then he read aloud. "March 3rd. I saw the way Elna looked at me today. There was hatred in it, cold, unfiltered hatred. I fear I have created monsters, raised them with too much comfort and too little conscience. I see Amanda watching them. I pray she never becomes like them." Sebastian turned the page. June 10th. I confronted Alberto about the discrepancies in the accounts. He smiled, as if theft were a game. He's not afraid of consequences because he believes I'll never live to enforce them. Amanda felt her throat tighten. He kept reading. August 21st. I saw Sebastian today. He looks tired, hardened, but honest. I fear they'll destroy him next for being the only one left who still speaks truth. I told him to leave. For his own good, he didn't argue. But I know he won't stop digging. He's stubborn like me. I hope he forgives me one day. Sebastian's voice cracked slightly on the last line. He closed the journal. I never got to say goodbye. Amanda reached across the table, resting her hand lightly over his. He knew you cared. He trusted you. That's why he sent you everything. A sharp knock on the door shattered the stillness. Both froze. Knock, knock. Then silence. Sebastian stood, moving quietly to the door, listening. Another knock. Slower this time. More deliberate. He signaled Amanda to stay back and slowly unlocked the door, but didn't open it. Who's there? He called through the wood. A voice answered. A woman's. I know you're in there, and I know what you have. Elena. Amanda's heart slammed against her ribs. You're playing a dangerous game, Sebastian. Elena continued, her voice icy and measured. This isn't a courtroom. There are no rules here. You think you're protecting her, but you're just painting a target on your back. Sebastian didn't reply. You should have stayed out of this. My brother made his choice. You made yours. But don't think I won't burn the whole forest down to find you. Silence. Then footsteps. Retreating. He waited a full minute before opening the door and stepping out. She was gone. Only the wet trail of her boots remained in the dirt, leading back toward the road. He closed the door and bolted it tight. Amanda was still staring, her breath shallow. She found us, she whispered. She won't be the last, Sebastian replied. But his voice was calm now, resigned, because war had begun. And there was no turning back. The cold morning air clung to the trees like a veil, heavy and damp with mist. A thin layer of frost coated the windows of the lodge, turning the view outside into a blurry watercolor of forest shadows. Amanda stood in front of the window, her arms wrapped around herself. She hadn't slept, not really. The echo of Lena's voice still reverberated in her mind. The menace behind the calm, the certainty of her power. Sebastian was pacing slowly by the fireplace, the notebook from Don Ernesto's journal in his hand. She came alone last night, he said, but that won't happen again. She was testing us, letting us know she knows. Amanda turned toward him, her expression hardening. What happens now? Sebastian stopped. Now we stop reacting and start acting. I want you to see something. He walked to a heavy black case that sat near his bag. Unlocking it, he pulled out a laptop and turned it on. The screen lit up in the dim room with the glow of encrypted files and folder names, names that made Amanda's heart skip. Shell accounts, Cayman transfers, Project Helix. He clicked on one. What is this? Amanda asked, coming closer. Proof, Sebastian said, of just how far Elena and Alberto have gone. Offshore accounts, property bought through proxies, even a record of cash payments made to a known arsonist just days before the fire at your estate. Amanda's breath caught. You're saying they... I'm saying they tried to kill you, and they may try again. This is the kind of power they're wielding. She looked at the documents flashing across the screen. Wire transfers disguised as consulting fees, signed orders with forged initials, a web of lies more intricate than she had ever imagined. But how do we use this? She asked. It's not like we can go to the police. Elena owns half the department, and Alberto probably owns the rest. Sebastian's face remained calm. We don't go to the police. We go to the one place they can't corrupt. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a worn leather folder. My uncle had a backup plan, a legal one. He had a copy of his real last will, the one that names you as the heir, hidden with his old friend, Judge Rafael Mendez, retired, honest, untouchable. He's been waiting for word from me. Amanda felt a sudden surge of hope. Then why haven't we gone to him already? Because once we do, there's no going back. The moment Rafael moves, the De La Vegas will know. They'll burn everything they can, destroy whatever's left. Amanda sat down heavily on the armchair. So what do we do? She asked softly. We strike first, Sebastian replied. And we do it where it hurts most. Their pride, their certainty, their mask of control. He showed her the outline of a press release he had drafted. Names, numbers, timelines, a storm ready to be unleashed on the world if the De La Vegas made another move. Amanda stared at it. They won't let this go quietly, she said. No, Sebastian agreed. But neither will we. A soft beeping interrupted them. It was Sebastian's phone, a secure message. He opened it, and his face darkened instantly. What is it? He showed her the screen, a video. It began with a view of a dark room. Then the camera moved to a chair. In it sat a man, bruised, gagged, trembling. Amanda recognized him instantly. Carlos, Don Ernesto's former driver, the man who knew too much. On the screen, a voice spoke coldly. This is what happens when people dig too deep. Tell Sebastian that silence is safer, for everyone. The video cut to black. Amanda covered her mouth with her hand. They found him, she whispered. They're torturing him. Sebastian's knuckles whitened around the edge of the table. We have to move now, he said. Tonight, before they erase every trace, before they take out everyone connected to my uncle. Amanda looked at him, truly looked. The rage simmering beneath the calm, the pain he carried for what he'd lost, and yet something else. Purpose, fire. She stood. I'm ready. He nodded once. Then we begin. Outside, the mist was starting to burn off, but the true storm, the one no one could escape, was only just beginning. Night fell over the city like a heavy curtain, thick with secrets and electricity. Rain danced across the rooftops, whispering a rhythm of urgency. Somewhere in the maze of downtown streets, a plan that had been years in the making was finally being set into motion. Amanda adjusted the dark scarf over her head and pulled the collar of her coat higher. Her eyes scanned the shadowed building across the street. The old legal archives, city-owned, rarely visited, but filled with records that could either vindicate her or bury her forever. Next to her, Sebastian checked his watch. We have exactly 30 minutes before the night guard does his round. The security system is outdated. I have already disabled the camera feed, but once we're inside we move fast. Amanda nodded. Her hands were trembling, but not from fear, from adrenaline. This was it. The moment they stopped hiding, the moment they claimed the truth, they slipped through the rusted side entrance. The building creaked like an old ship, the floorboards groaning beneath their feet. With only a small flashlight and Sebastian's memory of the file system, they moved deeper into the bowels of the archive. Shelves stretched endlessly in every direction, dusty forgotten tombs of justice and betrayal. "The probate section is down this way," Sebastian whispered. "My uncle's lawyer filed a copy of the first will, the real one, right before he was pressured to withdraw from the case. If we find that file and get it to Judge Mendez, we'll have something they can't ignore." Amanda helped him pull out stacks of label boxes, fingers brushing through years of legal paperwork, pages yellowed with time, ink fading, but truth doesn't decay. "Here," Sebastian said suddenly. He held up a folder, thick, red-stamped, and labeled with Don Ernesto's name. He opened it. Inside was a set of documents, sealed and notarized. Amanda leaned in. It was there, her name, Ernesto's unmistakable signature, the date, and then a small audio chip taped to the back. Sebastian pulled it off carefully. "A message," he said, "from him." But before they could say another word, the sound of footsteps shattered the silence, heavy, measured, not the guard. Someone else was inside. Sebastian grabbed the folder and stuffed it into his coat. "We have to go, now." They slipped out the opposite side of the archive, ducking through an old service corridor. The sound of footsteps was getting louder, closer, but not rushed, deliberate. Someone wanted to be heard. Someone wanted them to know they were being hunted. As they burst out into the alley behind the building, the rain hit them in full force. A black SUV was idling by the curb. Sebastian's jaw clenched. That's one of theirs. A door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, cold-eyed, face like carved marble. "Elena sends her regards," he said. And then he drew a pistol. Amanda barely had time to scream before Sebastian shoved her to the ground. Gunfire exploded into the night. Sebastian spun, dragging her behind the dumpster. He returned fire from a small pistol hidden in his coat. 2 shots, clean and precise. The man went down. The SUV screeched away. Breathless, soaked in rain and fear, Amanda looked at Sebastian. "You were going to tell me if this was a suicide mission, right?" He gave a strained half smile. "Only if it actually was." Sirens were beginning to wail in the distance. Not from the shooting, not yet, but something else. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. They ran, back through the side streets, back to the safe house. Amanda held the file to her chest like it was oxygen. Inside, Sebastian closed all the locks and pulled the blinds. Amanda looked at the chip in her hand. "Play it," she said. He inserted it into his old digital recorder. The static cleared, and then a familiar voice filled the room. Don Ernesto. "If you are hearing this, it means I have failed to protect you in life, but I hope I can protect you in death." His voice was calm, weathered by wisdom and sorrow. "I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong people. I underestimated." The next morning, the city was soaked in light rain, casting a gray hue over every rooftop and balcony. The air was thick with anticipation, as if even the clouds were holding their breath. Amanda stood at the window of the safe house, the file folder clenched in her hands. Every few minutes she would open it, rereading the contents as though trying to absorb every word into her blood. Behind her, Sebastian was pacing. He hadn't slept. The adrenaline from the night before still hummed in his veins. "We don't have much time," he said finally. "The De La Vegas will realize we escaped with something. They'll come faster now, louder, more desperate." Amanda turned to face him. "Judge Mendez, can we trust him?" Sebastian nodded slowly. "He is one of the last clean men in the system. Don Ernesto helped him once, saved his daughter from a cancer trial gone corrupt. Since then, the judge has owed him everything. If anyone will listen, it's him." Amanda exhaled sharply, then grabbed her coat. "Then let's go." Judge Javier Mendez lived in a discreet villa on the outskirts of the city. No guards, no cameras, just heavy wooden doors and thick silence. When he opened the door, his eyes widened in recognition. "Sebastian," he said, "what the hell are you doing here?" "We need to talk," Sebastian replied. "It's about Don Ernesto." That name changed everything. Minutes later, they were sitting in the judge's quiet study, the smell of old cigars lingering in the air. Amanda laid out the documents, the will, the emails, the banking records, and finally the audio recording. Judge Mendez listened without speaking, his face darkening with every minute. By the end, his hands were trembling. "I want him," he muttered. "Years ago I told him Elena and Alberto were more serpent than human, but he wouldn't listen, not until it was too late." He looked up at Amanda. "You're the girl, the one he mentioned." Amanda nodded silently. The judge stood, moving to a safe behind a shelf. He opened it with a code only he knew and pulled out an envelope marked E.G. "Ernesto gave this to me 6 months before his death. Told me not to open it unless someone came looking with proof." He handed it to her. "I think this belongs to you now." Amanda opened it. Inside were handwritten letters from Don Ernesto, one addressed directly to her, one to the judge, and another sealed with Elena's name on it. "I don't understand," she said. The judge explained. "He planned everything. He knew he couldn't stop them alone, so he left pieces, traps, just in case." Sebastian unfolded a blueprint on the desk. "We know they're laundering money through 3 shell companies. If we hit them one by one, expose them publicly, they'll lose political cover." The judge smiled grimly. "It's risky." "I'm done being afraid," Amanda said firmly. "They tried to destroy my life, my home, my family's legacy. Now it's their turn to be hunted." There was a fire in her eyes now, the same fire Don Ernesto once saw. That night, Elena de la Vega poured herself a glass of red wine in her marble kitchen, the world at her feet. But then her phone rang. No name, just a recording. Don Ernesto's voice. "If you are hearing this, Elena, then it means your mask has finally cracked. You always wanted everything, control, power, but you forgot the one thing that makes a de la Vega fired: loyalty." Her hand shook. The wineglass shattered on the floor. The walls around her kingdom were beginning to crumble, and far away, in the quiet shadows, Amanda and Sebastian were preparing the next strike. The real war had begun. The dawn was still gray when Amanda walked into the rented office space Sebastian had set up overnight. The walls were bare, the floor dusty, but in the center stood a large table covered with documents, photographs, USB drives, and maps. A war table. She looked around, taking it in. "This feels real now." Sebastian glanced at her. "It is." On the wall he had pinned photos of the De La Vega empire. Businesses, banks, politicians, lawyers, all connected by red string. It looked like a spider's web. And Elena and Alberto were at the center. Amanda took a deep breath. "Where do we start?" He pointed to a name circled in black ink. Fundación Nueva Luz. It's a fake charity. They laundered millions through it. But they made a mistake last year. An accountant turned whistleblower, then disappeared. We find him. We find the money trail. Amanda's gaze hardened. "Then let's find him." 2 days later, after dozens of phone calls and encrypted searches, they found a lead, a woman named Lourdes Menendez. She had worked at the foundation. She lived in a tiny coastal town under a different name, probably scared for her life. Amanda and Sebastian drove all night, the rain chasing them along winding roads, headlights cutting through the mist. The air between them was quiet, tense but connected, like co-conspirators. When they reached Lourdes' house, it was just before dawn. A simple home, curtains drawn. A stray cat meowed from under the porch. Amanda knocked gently, no answer. She knocked again, harder. Finally, the door creaked open. A thin woman, tired eyes, a scar down her cheek. "You're making a mistake coming here," Lourdes whispered. They never stopped watching. "We're not here to expose you," Amanda said. "We want to expose them." Lourdes hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, the house smelled of old wood and lemon tea. She poured them cups with trembling hands. I kept everything, she said. Copies of the transactions, names, even audio recordings. I knew someday someone would come. I just didn't know if they'd be friends or the firing squad. She handed over a rusted metal box. Sebastian opened it slowly. Inside, hard drives, thumb drives, photographs, evidence, enough to burn the De La Vegas down. Why now? Lords asked. Amanda didn't flinch. Because my home burned, and I know who lit the match. Lords nodded. Then you better move fast. Elena has ears in every hallway, and Alberto, he has no soul left to lose. Back in the city, Amanda sat in the office reviewing the evidence. It was damning. False invoices, shell companies, emails with ministers. She turned to Sebastian. We need to leak this, but smartly, not all at once. He agreed. We feed it to a few trusted journalists. Let it build. Let it grow like wildfire. But we hold the biggest bomb for last. Amanda leaned back. You mean the will? And Don Ernesto's final letter, the one we haven't opened yet. She looked at the envelope, still sealed, resting quietly on the desk like a sleeping volcano. Her voice was low. We'll open it when the world is watching. That evening, a breaking news alert shook the screens across the country. Major corruption allegations against Fundación Nueva Luz. Investigators questioned ties to De La Vega Group. Elena's face twitched when she saw it on the screen. Alberto threw his phone against the wall. This is an ambush, he growled, but it was too late. The fire had already started, and Amanda, once just a quiet girl in the shadow of a powerful family, now stood at the helm of a revolution. The morning after the news broke, the De La Vega offices were in chaos. Elena stormed through the marble lobby, her heels echoing like gunfire. Lawyers trailed behind her, sweating, whispering updates. Alberto sat in the boardroom, fingers drumming the table with venom in his eyes. They planned this, he hissed. Every step, like a damn chess game. Elena's voice was cold, controlled. Then it's time we flip the board. At the same moment, Amanda was seated across from an investigative journalist, Monica Serrano, in a quiet corner of a private cafe. Monica was sharp, relentless, and known for taking down corrupt ministers with her pen alone. Amanda handed her a flash drive. This isn't just about fake charities. It's about control. They manipulate banks, charities, even elections, and it's all tied to Elena and Alberto de la Vega. Monica plugged it into her tablet. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the contents. This is enough to bury them. Not bury, Amanda said calmly. Expose. Across town, Sebastian met with another ally, an old judge, now retired, named Tomas de Luna. He had once worked with Don Ernesto and still believed in justice, though age had worn away his idealism. Sebastian placed a thick folder on the judge's desk. You knew Ernesto. You know he wouldn't have handed his empire over to vultures. This evidence proves why he chose Amanda. Thomas looked through the documents, slowly, carefully. Then he sighed. This is a war. You do realize that? Sebastian didn't blink. I already chose my side. The judge nodded. Then so have I. Meanwhile, Elena had called an emergency meeting of the board. They gathered behind closed doors, their faces masks of panic and pride. She stood at the head of the table like a queen defending her crumbling empire. This smear campaign, she began, is the work of one person, Amanda Galinda. She is attempting to dismantle what we've built, but she is not family. She is nothing. One of the older board members cleared his throat. Her case is gaining traction. If she truly has the original will, Elena slammed her hand on the table. That will does not exist. Another member, younger, more cautious, leaned forward. What if it does? What if Ernesto left her everything? Elena's eyes narrowed. Then we destroy it before the courts ever see it. That night, Amanda received an anonymous tip. Someone had seen De La Vega's private security near an old villa Don Ernesto used to own. It was abandoned, sold years ago. But why were they there now? She and Sebastian drove there in silence, tension crackling between them. The air smelled of dust and old stone. They broke in through the side gate. The villa was covered in vines, windows shattered, nature reclaiming the ruins. In the study, under a false floorboard, they found it, a locked safe. Sebastian knelt, pulling tools from his backpack. "This might be it," Amanda whispered. "The original will." But just as he cracked the mechanism, headlights flashed through the broken shutters. Vehicles, several. "They found us," Sebastian said. "We have to go, now." Amanda grabbed the envelope inside the safe, thick, sealed with Ernesto's signet. Her heart pounded. They ran through the back courtyard, ducking behind stone walls as footsteps and flashlights filled the house. Gunshots rang out. "Go!" Sebastian shouted, shielding Amanda as they fled through the dark vineyard behind the property. They didn't stop running until they reached the road. Amanda clutched the envelope like a lifeline. She looked at Sebastian, breathless. They were going to destroy this. They knew. He nodded. "Now we know too much. They won't stop." Amanda looked down at the envelope. The last voice of Don Ernesto, the final piece, and perhaps their only hope. The hotel room was silent except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Amanda sat on the edge of the bed, the sealed envelope in her lap. Her fingers trembled as she ran them over the crest of Don Ernesto's seal. She didn't dare open it alone. This wasn't just a letter. It was a legacy, maybe a last confession. Sebastian sat across from her, a deep cut on his forehead from their escape through the vineyard. "You ready?" he asked, voice low. Amanda nodded. Slowly, she peeled the seal open. Inside was a single handwritten letter. "My dearest Amanda," it began. Her hands tightened around the page. "If you are reading this, then I am no longer alive. I fear this would happen, that my death would awaken the worst in those around me. Elena and Alberto have long forgotten what it means to love, to build, to protect. They have only one God now, greed." Sebastian leaned in. Amanda continued reading aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "I chose you not because of sentiment. I chose you because you remind me of who I once was. Unafraid, honest, unbreakable." A tear slid down Amanda's cheek. "I know they will try to destroy you. I know they will twist every word, every memory. But if you have found this letter, then it means you were strong enough to uncover the truth. That means you are ready. I am proud of you." Her voice broke. "Do not let them poison my memory. Do not let them win." At the bottom of the envelope was a second document, the original, notarized version of the will, the one that left everything, the estate, the businesses, the legacy, to Amanda. Sebastian stared at it, stunned. "This changes everything." Amanda couldn't speak. She was still holding the letter, pressing it to her chest, as if Don Ernesto were still there, whispering in her ear. The next morning, Amanda and Sebastian walked into the central court with 2 briefcases and a storm behind their eyes. Word had already spread. The De La Vega trial had become a media spectacle. Protesters outside the courthouse held signs. Some supported Amanda. Others shouted for the De La Vegas, blinded by decades of influence and power. Inside, Elena stood near the entrance, flanked by 5 attorneys. She looked calm. But Amanda saw the flicker in her eyes when she spotted the envelope. It was the same one she tried to destroy. Alberto gritted his teeth. He recognized it too. "They found it," he muttered. Elena didn't reply. Her silence was louder than any scream. In the courtroom, Judge Morales, a stern, principled man, called both parties to the bench. Amanda's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we submit new evidence. The original will of Don Ernesto de la Vega, along with a letter written in his own hand, explaining his decision." The courtroom murmured. Elena's lawyers immediately objected. "Your Honor, this evidence has not been authenticated. It could be fabricated." Judge Morales raised a hand. "It will be examined. But if it proves authentic, this case takes a very different direction." Outside the courthouse, Monica Serrano, the journalist, released her exposé. She had everything: photos, bank statements, interviews with whistleblowers, a full report on the De La Vega siblings' years of manipulation, blackmail, and money laundering. It hit the news like a bomb. Elena's image was splashed across every screen in the country, once a revered philanthropist, now exposed as a fraud. Alberto's accounts were frozen by order of the Financial Crimes Division. Their empire was cracking, but Amanda knew it wasn't over. That night, as she and Sebastian sat in the car, overlooking the city, he turned to her. "They'll come at you harder now. You've backed them into a corner." Amanda nodded. "I'm not backing down. Not after everything he gave me." Sebastian looked at her, truly looked at her. "You're not the same person who walked into that funeral weeks ago." Amanda turned to him, her eyes clear, fierce. "I know. I'm not running anymore. I'm finishing what Ernesto started." The city lights blinked in the distance like stars. But behind that beauty, Amanda knew. The war was just beginning. The courtroom was packed to capacity the next morning. Photographers swarmed the front entrance. The media circus outside had grown, and every minute of the trial was now national news. Amanda walked in with unwavering calm. She wore a black suit, simple, elegant, powerful. At her side was Sebastian, who kept a protective eye on every movement, every whisper around them. Judge Morales sat behind the bench, surrounded by high stacks of documents. The tension in the air was suffocating. "Court is now in session," the bailiff announced. Elena and Alberto entered shortly after. Gone was their usual smugness. Elena looked older, her eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. Alberto's tie was crooked, his hand shaking slightly as he adjusted it. The court clerk stood and handed over the results from the forensic analysis. "Your Honor," he said, "the will and the letter have been authenticated by 3 independent experts. The ink, the paper, the signature, all genuine. The will is legitimate." The courtroom erupted into gasps. Elena shot a look at her lawyer, cold, panicked. Alberto's jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might crack. Judge Morales pounded his gavel. Silence in the court. He turned toward Amanda. "This new evidence significantly alters the case. Miss Galinda, as per Don Ernesto de la Vega's final wishes, you are the rightful heir." Amanda breathed out slowly, steady as stone. Elena stood suddenly. "This is absurd," she shouted. "She manipulated him. A gold-digging stranger who showed up at his door months before his death." "Enough!" the judge barked. "Another outburst like that, and you'll be held in contempt." Elena sat down, but her fury vibrated through the room. Sebastian leaned toward Amanda and whispered, "They're unraveling." After a short recess, Amanda's lawyer called their final witness, Monica Serrano. The journalist entered with calm confidence. She took the stand, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. "Miss Serrano," the lawyer began, "can you tell the court what you discovered about the De La Vega siblings?" Monica nodded. For over a decade, Elena and Alberto de la Vega systematically forged documents, laundered money through offshore accounts, and used threats to silence business rivals. I have interviews, paper trails, and witness statements. I have handed everything over to the federal authorities. Gas rippled again. Amanda watched Elena's face twist, not in anger this time, but fear, pure, unmistakable fear. "Are you saying that their attempt to contest Don Ernesto's will is part of a larger pattern?" "Absolutely," Monica said. "Their entire lives have been built on deception. This isn't about inheritance. This is about criminal enterprise." Judge Morales turned toward the defense. "Do you wish to cross-examine?" Elena's lawyer stood, but before he could speak, Elena interrupted. "No," she said, her voice flat. "There's no point." Alberto turned to her in shock. "What are you doing?" She stood up. "What our lawyer won't say, I will. We tried to discredit Amanda because we thought she was weak, but it turns out she has something we never had." She turned to Amanda. "Integrity." Judge Morales banged his gavel again. This court will recess until tomorrow morning for the final ruling. As everyone filed out, Amanda and Elena's eyes met one last time. No words passed between them, but an entire history did. That night, Amanda sat by herself on the hotel balcony, overlooking the city lights again. She held Don Ernesto's letter in her lap, a message from Sebastian. Get some sleep. Tomorrow, we close this chapter. She smiled faintly, but deep in her gut, Amanda knew villains rarely go down quietly. And the De La Vegas, they still had teeth. The morning air was heavy with anticipation. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere had shifted, not tense, not chaotic, but focused, as though the building itself knew that a reckoning was about to take place. Amanda stepped through the grand wooden doors, flanked by Sebastian and her legal team. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but she didn't flinch. Her eyes were locked forward, unblinking. In the gallery, spectators whispered. Journalists scribbled notes furiously. Even the judge's clerk seemed more alert than usual. Judge Morales entered the courtroom and took his seat. He looked weary, but composed, the weight of justice sitting firmly on his shoulders. This court is in session, the bailiff declared. Judge Morales scanned the courtroom. We are here to issue the final ruling in the matter of her phone buzzed. He paused, letting silence spread like oil. This has not been a simple case. The evidence presented revealed not only a contested will, but a legacy tangled in deceit, greed, and criminal conduct. After reviewing the testimony, documents, and expert opinions, the court acknowledges the most recent will of Don Ernesto de la Vega as authentic and legally binding. Amanda closed her eyes just for a second. Relief washed through her like warm light. The judge continued. Therefore, the court recognizes Amanda Galinda as the sole heir of Don Ernesto's estate. A gasp moved through the room like wind, but Judge Morales wasn't finished. In addition, based on the evidence of financial crimes and forgery presented during these proceedings, I am referring the actions of Elena and Alberto de la Vega to the Public Prosecutor's Office for Criminal Investigation. The silence that followed was deafening. Elena stiffened. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Alberto buried his face in his hands. The gavel fell. This court is adjourned. And with that, it was over. Outside, Amanda stepped into a sea of cameras. Miss Galinda, do you have any comment? Someone shouted. She paused, looked up. My comment is this. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about truth. Don Ernesto trusted me with his legacy. I intend to honor it. She walked past the flashes, past the chaos, toward the waiting car. Sebastian opened the door for her. You did it, he said, smiling for the first time in days. No, Amanda replied. We did it. They drove away, but the storm wasn't entirely behind them. Later that night, in a quiet office on the outskirts of the city, two men sat across from each other. One wore a dark suit and a crooked smile. She beat them, he said. The other man, older, lean with silver hair and cold eyes, tapped a cigarette against a crystal ashtray. Yes, he said, lighting it slowly. But Amanda Galinda just became very rich and very visible. He exhaled smoke like a warning. She'll need more than lawyers soon. The first man raised an eyebrow. You want me to make her disappear? A pause. No, the silver-haired man said. Not yet. Let her enjoy her victory. Then we introduce her to the real war. They clinked glasses. The game, it seemed, was far from over. The city lights shimmered in the distance like broken glass. Amanda sat alone on the balcony of her penthouse, high above the streets. The wind tugged at her silk robe, and in her hand she held a glass of wine, untouched. The silence should have felt like victory, but it didn't. Her phone buzzed beside her. A new message from an unknown number. Don Ernesto's enemies weren't just in your courtroom. Be careful who you trust. S. Amanda stared at the screen. Her chest tightened. Sebastian? No. It wasn't his writing style. Someone else. Someone watching. She locked the phone and looked out into the night. The empire she now controlled wasn't made of stone and steel. It was made of secrets, shadows, and blood. At the De La Vega estate, what remained of Elena and Alberto's world was collapsing fast. The authorities had begun freezing accounts, seizing properties. Elena screamed into the phone as her lawyer gave her the news. Now, that estate was ours. That little orphan girl tricked him. But it wasn't rage that filled her eyes now. It was something colder. Revenge. She hung up and turned to Alberto, who sat in silence on the leather couch, staring blankly at the fireplace. She humiliated us, Elena hissed, but we still have cards to play. He looked at her slowly. What are you talking about? El hombre gris. Alberto sat up. No. She owes her life to Ernesto. Let's see how she survives when the man he once crossed come knocking. You're insane. Number, I'm realistic. Meanwhile, Amanda and Sebastian reviewed the file Don Ernesto had hidden in a false drawer, now uncovered by Sebastian's relentless digging. Inside were names, accounts, a network of allies and enemies. Do you know what this is? Sebastian asked, spreading out the documents on the table. Amanda studied them. A map. Yes, he said, a map of power. Don Ernesto didn't just leave you money, he left you a battlefield. Amanda picked up a photo. It showed Ernesto in the 1980s, laughing, arm in arm with a man in military uniform. The bag was labeled General Navarro. Keep eyes on him. He had dirt on everyone, she whispered. And now, Sebastian said quietly, so do you. A chill ran down Amanda's spine. She wasn't just an heiress anymore, she was a keeper of dangerous truths, and they were about to come knocking. Elsewhere, in a private hangar at a remote airfield, a black jet engine roared to life. A man stepped onto the tarmac, long coat, face obscured, hands gloved. He was greeted by another nervous man holding a dossier. Your next assignment. The man opened the folder. A photo of Amanda Galinda stared back at him. Her, he said, she's just an heiress. The other man laughed nervously. She's more than that now, and very dangerous to the wrong people. The assassin closed the file and nodded once. The hunt had begun. The sound of heels echoed through the marble hallway of the old courthouse. Amanda stood tall, her tailored black suit sharp against the pale morning light. Behind her, Sebastian followed, carrying a thick case file, the final evidence prepared to expose everything. Inside the courtroom, the tension was electric. Elena and Alberto sat with their new legal team, visibly shaken. The confident arrogance they once flaunted was gone, replaced now by the tight-lipped fear of people who knew the walls were closing in. Amanda took her place at the front. The judge, a stern-faced woman with silver-streaked hair, entered and nodded for the hearing to begin. This, Amanda began, voice clear and calm, is not just about inheritance. It's about fraud, about betrayal, about justice. She laid the first document on the table, then another and another. Each page told a story. Falsified signatures, dummy corporations, hidden accounts. Your Honor, she continued, holding up the final piece, a letter in Ernesto's own handwriting, dated just weeks before his death. He knew they were trying to strip him of everything. This was not paranoia, it was foresight. The courtroom fell silent. Elena leaned toward her lawyer, whispering furiously. Alberto, pale and sweating, stared at the floor. Then came Sebastian. He woke up, holding a worn envelope, the same one Amanda had once opened with trembling hands. I was part of the family once, he said, but I refused to be part of their scheme. I lost my inheritance, my name, everything, but I kept the truth. He opened the envelope and presented the contents. Emails, financial trails, confidential memos, all showing a pattern of manipulation and abuse of the power. The judge studied the documents carefully. Then, slowly, she looked at Elena and Alberto. You will have a chance to respond. But if these allegations prove true, she said coldly, you are looking at more than just the loss of inheritance. You are looking at prison. Elena's face contorted with rage. She stood up suddenly. "This little snake! She bewitched him!" "Sit down!" the judge snapped, slamming her gavel. Security moved forward. Alberto pulled Elena back into her seat. Across the room, Amanda didn't flinch. She looked at them both, and for the first time she felt no fear, only resolve. That night, Amanda returned home to find a single rose lying on her doorstep. No note, no sender, just the rose. She picked it up carefully, eyes narrowing. Someone was sending a message, and it wasn't over yet. Amanda held the rose in her hand as if it were a shard of ice. It was fresh, too fresh. Someone had placed it there just moments before she arrived. The street was quiet, no footsteps, no witnesses. She turned the flower slowly. A single thorn had been snapped off, deliberately. A message only someone in the family would understand. Sebastian arrived minutes later, having taken a different car. She showed him the rose without a word. He stared at it, lips tightening. This is how Alberto used to warn people. Subtle, quiet, always with a poetic touch. But it was never just a flower. Amanda stepped inside, heart pounding harder now. Her home, once a sanctuary, felt exposed, vulnerable. She drew all the curtains, checked the locks. The scent of the rose lingered in the air like a warning. That night she couldn't sleep. Images of Don Ernesto flashed before her. His kind eyes, his rare but warm laughter, the weight of his legacy now pressed fully on her shoulders. At 3:13 a.m., her phone buzzed. An unknown number, one text. "Enjoying your victory? Don't get comfortable." Sebastian was in the guest room down the hall. She knocked and showed him the screen. He read it without blinking. "We knew they wouldn't take this lying down," he said, "but now it's no longer legal. It's personal, dangerous." He opened the case file again and laid out everything they hadn't yet presented in court. The connections to offshore accounts, the names of corrupt officials, the digital footprints Alberto and Elena thought they had erased. "We'll go public," Amanda said. "Media, press conference. If something happens to us now, the whole world will know." Sebastian hesitated. It might provoke them. "They're already provoked," she replied. "This is war." The next morning, news broke. One of Elena's shell companies had been raided. Someone inside had leaked their location and purpose to federal authorities. Elena's face, caught by paparazzi as she exited her estate in handcuffs, was on every screen, still elegant, still deadly, but caught off guard. Then she whispered. Amanda watched the news quietly, sipping her tea. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "The storm is here." Her lawyer called. "Congratulations. This changes everything. The court has frozen the disputed assets pending final judgment. They're panicking. We have leverage now." But Amanda's expression didn't change. She was remembering the rose and the missing thorn. Later that evening, a fire broke out in a storage facility owned by Sebastian, the one that held the backup copies of the documents. By the time fire crews arrived, half the evidence was gone. Amanda and Sebastian stood by the smoking remains, the orange-red flames flickering like a warning in the night. "This is retaliation," Sebastian muttered. "They're desperate." Amanda didn't blink. Let them be. She reached into her coat, pulled out a USB. "I always keep a copy." Sebastian smiled for the first time in days. "Your uncle would have been proud." Amanda looked at the smoldering warehouse, her face lit by firelight. "I'm not done yet." The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the benches, their cameras tucked discreetly behind coats and bags, every lens waiting for the collapse of an empire. Amanda stepped inside wearing black. Not for mourning, for battle. Her expression was unreadable, poised like a general before a siege. Sebastian walked beside her, carrying a small leather briefcase, plain worn, but filled with what could end everything. Across the aisle sat Elena and Alberto. Elena wore white, not innocence, arrogance. Her face was emotionless, her lips drawn into a tight, superior line. Alberto's eyes darted between the benches, calculating, twitching slightly, not used to being watched by so many without control. The judge, an aging but firm woman with decades of political and criminal cases under her belt, entered. Her gavel struck once. "We will now hear the final evidence in the matter of the Galindo estate." Amanda stood. Her voice, when she spoke, was low but unwavering. "My name is Amanda Galinda. I was entrusted not only with my uncle's name, but with his truth. I stand here today not only to protect his legacy, but to expose those who tried to poison it." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge raised a hand. "Continue." Sebastian placed the USB drive on the desk. The courtroom screen flickered to life. One by one, images began to play. Offshore transactions, signed forged contracts, emails from shell companies with E. De La Vega and A. De La Vega as senders. Amanda didn't look at the screen, she looked at the judge. Her voice carried through the stillness like a razor through silk. "These are not assumptions. These are not theories. These are actions, deliberate, documented, criminal." Elena's face remained frozen, but a single bead of sweat trickled behind her ear. Alberto leaned forward, about to speak, but his lawyer put a hand on his arm, a silent warning. The tide was shifting. "And this," Amanda said, pressing a key, "is the message my uncle left me." A video file opened. Don Ernesto, sitting in the garden, his voice tired, but his gaze still sharp. "If you're watching this, Amanda, it means the battle has reached its end. I always feared they would come for what I built, that blood would not stop blood. I left everything to you not just because I trusted you, but because I believed in your strength. They will not stop, but neither will you. My soul will rest if justice prevails." The silence afterward was deafening. Amanda sat down. The judge spoke softly but firmly. "This court will recess. Final decision to be announced tomorrow." That night Amanda couldn't sleep. The city outside was quiet, heavy with the weight of decisions not yet made. Sebastian was on the balcony, G at the stars. "They'll try something," he said without turning. "I know. You did everything you could." Amanda stepped beside him, gazing into the black velvet sky. "Not everything," she whispered. A noise interrupted the silence. A buzz at the front gate. No name, no message. Sebastian checked the screen. A black van parked just outside the property, engine still running. "Stay inside," he said, moving to the safe where he kept documents, and for the first time a weapon. But when he opened the door, nothing, no figure, no attacker, just a small envelope. Amanda picked it up. Inside, a single sheet of paper typed. "You win in court, you lose everything else. Make the right choice." She crumpled the note. No fear, only fire. She turned to Sebastian. They just made their last mistake. The day was overcast. A sharp wind blew through the capital like a warning. The courthouse stood like a fortress, grim and cold. Amanda entered alone. Sebastian had insisted on coming, but she had said no. "This part, I have to do alone." Inside, the courtroom was quieter than before. No gasps, no media frenzy, just the weight of judgment. Elena and Alberto were already there. Alberto's face was flushed, lips tight. Elena, strangely calm, wore the same white. Her silence now felt less arrogant, more final. The judge entered. "All parties present?" Amanda nodded. So did the De La Vega siblings. The judge straightened the stack of papers and then looked directly at Amanda. "This case has challenged every corner of the law and of the soul. Greed, betrayal, legacy, and truth have all stood trial here." She turned the page. Having reviewed the documents presented by Miss Galinda, including financial records, forged contracts, falsified correspondence, and the personal statement of Don Ernesto Galindo, this court finds that the defendants, Elena de la Vega and Alberto de la Vega, knowingly and maliciously engaged in acts of fraud, forgery, and attempted estate theft. A beat passed. Therefore, the final will and testament of Don Ernesto Galindo stands as written. Full inheritance rights are hereby granted to Amanda Galinda. A sharp cry broke from Alberto's throat. Elena didn't move, just blinked once. Furthermore, the judge added, due to the criminal nature of the defendant's actions, the court recommends immediate investigation by federal financial authorities. The gavel struck. The De La Vegas were finished. Amanda didn't smile. There was no triumph, only silence, deep and vast, like standing on the edge of a cliff after a long, brutal climb. As she walked out of the courthouse, Sebastian was waiting at the steps. "It's done?" he asked. Amanda nodded. She looked out at the horizon. "Yes, and it's only just beginning." He smiled, relief in his eyes. But Amanda's gaze was somewhere distant, deeper. "They thought they could erase him," she said. "Erase everything he stood for. But now the truth is written in stone." She took Sebastian's hand. "But I'm not done yet. What they did to him, what they did to us, it wasn't just theft, it was war." He looked at her, surprised. "You're still going after them?" "They don't just deserve prison," Amanda said. "They deserve to be remembered as the ones who tried to bury the truth and failed." That night she returned to Don Ernesto's home. She didn't cry. She stood in his library, surrounded by everything he loved. She lit a candle. Then she opened his journal. On the inside cover, in faded ink, were the last words he had written, "Legacy is not what you leave behind. It's who stands in your place when they try to burn it down." Amanda closed the book, and outside a new dawn began.